I know who Scrooge McDuck is. Why is he filling a bathtub and swimming in it? What's going on?
Oh, Scrooge McDuck has like a vault full of gold coins and money.
I know that, but what's the bathtub thing?
And just because you got 200 grand in 20s. Like, you know what I mean?
Like
Like,
swim in the money because you have it.
3 hours of sleep, bro.
Oh, he
3
filled the
hours of sleep.
bathtub up with money.
This
This is melatonin talking, okay?
Interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from our partners in Twisted World.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from Twisted World.
What is up, Twisted World? We are back. I'm with my boys, Andy and Cody. What's up, guys?
Yo.
Hello.
So, hey, we broke 3,000. We love you. 3,000.
Tony pun.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So, with that, you know, we're recording this episode a little earlier than normal. And, funny story. So I last night, guys, I was like, man, I got to get up early, you know, make sure I get plenty of sleep to record this episode. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get some melatonin. You guys take melatonin ever? Supplement?
A lot.
Yeah.
Almost every night.
Yeah. So I know you can take like up to 20 milligrams or something. So my wife gets me this bottle of melatonin. I'm looking at it and it says 3 milligrams. And I'm like, 3 milligrams? Like what? Like I take thousands of milligrams of vitamin C and B, and I'm like, 3, that's nothing, right? So I don't know. I'm like, hey, I can take 7, 8. I don't know what I took, but I took a few. And so I take some melatonin, and I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep. And so I'm like, I'm going to play some video games for a little bit.
Oh, my.
And
after you took the melatonin?
well, no, because I'm like, hey, I need to wait for it to make me tired, right?
I'm with him on this theory because I do the same thing with my phone. Like, I'm like, I'll take some NyQuil because I'm like got a headache or something. I'm having trouble sleep. And I'll be on my phone for like half an hour because I don't fall asleep
That's
naturally.
fine if you're in your bed on your phone. But the thing is, if you're up, like playing video games,
I know.
after you took melatonin,
Well,
it doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and so I'm playing.
It only takes 10 minutes for it to kick in.
Well, okay, well,
Apparently.
that'd be the case. It didn't say that on the bottle anywhere. And I'm just saying, so I'm playing some video games, and like 2 hours passes, and I'm like, wait, why am I not tired? All right, let me go lay down. So I go lay down. My wife's watching that Aretha movie.
Respect.
Yeah, good movie.
Great movie.
So I finished watching that with her, and then I'm like, I'm gonna close my eyes, and I try to close my eyes, and I'm like, why am I wide awake? Like wide awake. Next thing I know, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, wide awake. I'm like, there's melatonin. It's supposed to work, right?
Like next thing you know, it was 3 a.m. because you fell asleep?
No. Like I'm still
or
playing.
5 hours have passed.
I'm still playing on my phone, like messing around, watching a
Okay.
little net. Like I'm like, I tossed and turned.
Gotcha.
What is going on?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I hear people say, oh, I take melatonin and I take like, 10 milligrams and I fall right asleep. And I'm like, no, it was like complete opposite. So needless to say, if you guys are out there and you take melatonin, it could do opposite.
Here's the thing. When you're looking at a screen, a lot of the time the blue light from the screen tricks your brain to thinking that it's the sun. So you think it's daytime. So your melatonin hormones aren't going to start working or kick in. So that's probably what happened.
You need to. He's not wrong. You need to pair. So with your iPhone, you can go into night shift mode, which allows your screen to have like more of an orange tint, and it slowly gets more orange as you watch it. That with the melatonin should trigger the effect of you getting tired.
You can set it up to where it'll automatically switch on at a certain time. I have mine on at 7 p.m. every night so that no matter if I'm on my phone in my bed, I still won't get blue light. And I have glasses, blue light glasses for when I'm playing video games late at night too.
So what you're saying is not only it's the Xbox and Aretha's fault.
Yeah, it's definitely Aretha's fault.
Oh, yeah.
We can't go around that. But yeah, it's Xbox, Aretha, potato.
Put it all together.
It's all blue light.
I get it. No, I mean, so, listen to a little RESPCT. However you spell that. Did I spell that right?
You forgot to say the E. You forgot the E.
This is what happens with 3 hours of sleep. So anyway, I'm like, I'm on the way and getting ready to head over here to record and grab some coffee. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to be stopping at one coffee shop to grab all of us coffee. And then I'm like, well, let me stop at Starbucks first. So I get Starbucks, get some cold brew, some espresso shots, drink that on the way to the next coffee shop. And the second coffee shop, I stopped at Dutch Bros.
Mhm.
You know, hit place. It's cool. They're always pumping. 7:30 a.m.
coffee.
They act like they've been up all night themselves.
Yeah, they probably have.
Probably, right? So a little DB coffee. So speaking of DB, let's get
We got to
into
work
our
on your transitions.
What a segue, dude. Aaron has the best segues. And these are all
You know he's been scripting
and-
this on the way over here.
Yeah.
He's in the car. He's like, guys, I'm going to say DB coffee.
all
3
these-
hours of sleep. 3 hours of sleep. I constructed this 5,000 times in my head on the
These
way
are
here.
all like homebrewed segues that he's made up while not sleeping. Like
He's
he's
like
just laying in bed, like, what's a good segue for tomorrow?
Looking in the mirror in his car.
B. Dutch
Bros.
Hey, there we go. I'm gonna use that tomorrow.
Yes. Yes. Or today, because I think it was probably at 2:30
Right, it's the
when I
same
thought
day.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
right.
it was all same. Anyways, so we are gonna talk about what is listed as one of FBI's most unsolved mysteries. And it is a gentleman that has been coined, and we'll get into of how he actually got the name, and it's definitely not his name. But anyways, D.B. Cooper. Didn't know a ton about this. You guys knew a little bit more about it. But tons of digging, and there's all kinds of FBI files on this alias D.B. Cooper. So first and foremost, let's just lay a little backstory on the guy, right? So we got a guy. He walks into, I believe, Oregon Airport.
Correct. Oregon International Airport. Portland International Airport.
Purchases a one-way ticket to Seattle for $20, by the way. 1971? 71?
Oh man.
$20. Like, I just flew to Dallas. I can't even tell you, like, that it cost that plane ticket.
$400.
I saw this guy's cost, and I'm like,
He recouped that real fast.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Get
can't
it?
with these puns. He
Yeah, I got.
recouped it.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay.
We should get like a little rim shot. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
The rim shot button.
So I'm writing segues. Andy's writing dad jokes. We're cool though. We got this.
Yeah.
All the way.
True to form.
We just need Cody
Dad
to.
jokes, segues, Twisted World.
That's it. That's how it works. Twist it up. So DB Cooper, he walks in and actually he runs by the alias and he says, "Hey, my name is Dan Cooper." He orders this. So I got a question. Did they not like check IDs, or did they not have any of this stuff in 71? I mean, I wasn't alive. You guys weren't alive, but I guess they just like, you just walked into an airport like, "Hey, give me a ticket," like you're riding a bus,
It was
right?
just different.
100%. It's
People trusted people.
It was an Airbus, right?
Yeah.
And so you bought a ticket.
Yeah.
There's no security.
Nothing.
You just get on, you have your cigarette, and you just ride the plane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No TSA telling you to take your shoes off.
Do you see
and-
how many people are on this plane?
No, I did not see how many.
37.
37 people.
Yeah.
Usually you get
on
on
a-
a plane and there's like almost 100 people on the plane, maybe
Well,
even more, you know?
And now I'm sure that other flights did have more. This was the eve of Thanksgiving. It was the day. It was the night before
Yep.
Thanksgiving. So by this point, the people are already with their families, things like that. So I'm sure that had a. He picked a great day to do what he did. Right?
He picked a great day to do the job.
Yeah. So because it was a 727. So we're not talking about a small plane here. This was a large plane, and he specifically took this flight from Oregon to Seattle. He purchased, and I don't know how this ties in, other than the fact that he picked his seat, specifically an aisle seat, 18C is what I read by the FBI, and he picked a seat where there was no seat next to him, or where the seat next to him was also available. Right? Specifically picked like, hey, which I would do too if I knew that I was going to fly. Like, hey, I don't want the people. You get the snorers and the people that are like, "Can I get the popcorn?" And they sit there and munch. I'm just trying to. I don't want to hear you munching on that popcorn, right? So night before Thanksgiving, there was how many people? 37?
37, and then there's 6 crew members. So the total of 43
Right.
people on
Does
the
that
plane.
include the pilots as well? When you
Yeah.
say crew members?
Crew
Okay.
members.
So there was 2 flight attendants, both women, one named Florence, one named Tina. And so he gets on this flight. He was a white male, dressed in a black suit, white shirt, black tie. Okay. Very Men in Black-esque, right? He ordered a bourbon and Coke.
Yeah, bourbon and Coke.
Is my understanding.
Bourbon and soda, bourbon
Very
and Coke.
distinguished.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bougie, right? So he gets on the flight. The flight takes off, and he hands a note to Miss Florence. Now, I love in one of the. So I read 2 articles and the FBI write up, and in one of the articles, I love that it said in this time frame in like the 1970s, I guess it was known that a lot of single men would pass their phone number or room number to flight attendants.
Yeah, they'd hit on them that way. Like,
hey, what's up, girl? How's it going?
Not even that. They just like put stuff in their pocket.
They just like dump it in their pocket.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Like this is a strip club. Like it's like, sir, you're flying to Seattle. Stop putting stuff in my clothes.
Stop touching me. What is wrong with you? You do that now, and you got guns pointed in your face. So he puts it in her pocket. She just, from what I read, she just treated it like it was nothing, as if this happens often. So
yeah, I read it. Basically, it says that she basically just grabbed it and stuck it in her own pocket.
Yeah. So this must happen to Florence a lot. So I'm guessing she was a decent looking flight attendant because, Mr. D.B. Cooper's like, hey, here you go.
And then he's like, please don't flatter yourself. Read the note.
Read the note. Yeah, because if she comes back around, he's like, you need to read that note. And so she reads the note, and I did not, this is where there's some discrepancy because there was like the flight attendant, and I'm sure at this point she's scared out of her mind, right? So stuff gets lost in translation at that point. Go ahead.
What's the note say?
Well, that's again. So I read 2 different things, but it basically said that he had a bomb, and that he requested $200,000 and 2 parachutes is what I read. And now, my understanding that there was possibly a request for 4.
I don't know that. Yeah, there was a request for 4. I don't know that he requested $200,000. I think he requested all of the money. Like basically, it was from people on the plane. Correct?
Oh no, because he requested specifically $200,000 and it had to be unsequential.
Oh, unsequential. Okay. Is it also
numbers, and it had to be in $20 increments.
Yeah,
specifically.
There's a lot of discrepancy about these notes about like what's actually on the notes, and
he gets the note back,
right? Because he takes the note back, and all of these are coming from like word of mouth. Like it's just from Florence. Like
it's
Florence
telephone.
It's a game of telephone that Florence has to play,
and she's scared
while she's scared, right? Because so there's a couple of different. Yeah, there's a note that says I need $200,000. There's a note that says I have a bomb. Right. The way that I read it is the sources that I got. Whereas the first note said, I have a bomb. I need you to come sit next to me. And so he moves to the middle seat.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how the plane's structured, there's aisle A, B, C, and then D, E, F.
Yeah, 3 on each side. Yeah.
And then so he's on the what I would say the right wing side, right? And he's in the middle of the plane. So 18 is only halfway through the plane. It's where the wings kind of end.
Yeah.
Right. There's still a whole back of the cabin. Right. And the reason why he chose that one is because the aft stairway is centered in the middle right there. That's kind of where it opens up. So he wanted to pick a spot where it was in the middle of the plane and he could easily not have to move around the plane very much. He can just talk to the the flight attendant. Right. Because there's a phone.
The flight stripper.
Yeah. The flight stripper. Right. The flight mistress. And so because that spot was so strategic because there's a phone right there that connects to the front of the cockpit, so she could talk to the pilots, and she could also call down to Earth.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah,
weird to talk about that but they're not on right. I mean, they're flying. So
yeah.
But anyway, so down to the ground, right? So very smart choice for him to sit there. But he asked her to sit next to him, so he moves over to the center aisle, which would be B, right? So he's now sitting in 18B.
And I saw that. So he opens the case, right, and shows her what's in the case, and she describes it as some wires and some cylinders. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that popped in my head is, so this is why TSA doesn't let me take my hairspray. So it's Mr. DB Cooper. It's because of him.
Oh, a lot of the stuff.
I can't
DB Cooper.
I can't take my hairnet.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, again, we were looking at this. I was just
Right.
researching this because we just had a brief conversation about it. Like, no form of identity was required to get on the plane.
Yeah.
Like, you could just buy a ticket, and he actually didn't pay 20. He paid $18.42. That was the actual total for him to get on the flight.
I mean, tomorrow we'll be paying that in gas per gallon.
And
so,
you can just carry whatever you wanted on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there was no limitation. I'm sure there was a size limitation at some point, but for him to
so-
bring a suitcase on with
so-
some wires and a cylinder.
So he got to take 2 cans of hairspray and threw some wires in there. He's like, "See my bomb?" And she's like, "Ah." Right. So
Was that a
Probably
reenactment?
That was.
That was good.
That was.
I mean, your ears are
I practiced
popping
that.
in the plane,
I practiced that at 2:30 in the morning when I was, trying to figure out why the melatonin wasn't kicking in.
Amy's like, "What are you doing?" Don't worry about it, babe. Don't worry about it. It's for the podcast tomorrow.
So she sits down, she looks at the bomb or whatever it was. And then at this point, I'm sure she relays this. Now, not only she read the note, she sat down next to the guy, she's looked at this inside this case, and we have a potential bomb.
Right. And so the next notes that are given to her, because I don't recall he actually says anything other than, "I need you to look at the note." Right. That's the only thing that he's actually said to the flight attendant thus far. Everything else has been via handwritten notes.
Right.
So the other note that he gives her is, "Here are my demands." Right. He wants $200,000 in circulated American currency.
Yeah.
And that's a very crucial part we'll get into later. But that's what he asked for. He asked for $200,000 or, in 20s. And there's a couple different variations
He
of
didn't
how
want
he said
new
it.
money.
Huh?
He didn't want
Yeah, he
new
wanted
money.
circulated
He
money.
wanted circulated money.
Circulated American currency.
And-
Exactly.
And keep in mind, I know there's probably people like, well, why did they go along with this? The one thing, especially in the 1970s, the last thing that the airlines needed was any negative publicity. So they were going to do everything in their power to go along with this. That's everything I read. That even the FBI was like, it would have been foolish to try to fool him in any way because he could have easily had it in a bomb, blown up the plane.
And also there's passengers on the plane.
Right.
Hostage situation.
The one thing I did read is that the FBI did adhere to like the numbers not being in sequence and all that. They adhere to it, but they specifically put, and this is important for later as well, they did make sure that the letter L was in the sequence so that they could track that. So again, important piece we'll get back to later, but
Right. Yes, they did document a lot of the serial numbers in all the cash that they gave.
Yeah.
That are on the bill. So they have all that information. But yeah, so he goes on to say, and then I need these 2 sets of parachutes, right? And there's some discrepancy between 2 sets and 4 parachutes, right? And the reason why that is because when he's asking for 2 sets of parachutes, it's technically 4, but it's 2, parachutes. There's the reserve parachute and the primary parachute, right?
Right.
And so that's why there's a discrepancy of 2 to 4 because it's 1 front parachute, 1 back parachute, and then another front parachute, another back parachute, right?
Right.
Which,
I mean, I wouldn't even have known that. So the guy must have had a decent amount of some knowledge, right, to know what he was doing.
well, the thought is that the FBI thought he might take a hostage with him off the plane.
Oh, that part was smart. I'm saying I didn't know that one person actually, like I've never personally been parachuting or skydiving or whatever. But I was reading that he did ask, like when you jump, you have your reserve, you have your backup. And so it is that technically 2 sets of parachutes. It is
Right.
Yeah, and
one person wears 2 parachutes.
And there's an argument, right? Because the big argument is did he died in the jump? People are like, there was a thunderstorm going on when he jumped, he wouldn't have survived. But the argument is that if he was a novice, he was someone that actually had jumped before or knew what to do, which by asking for a front and a back backpack or a parachute, he showed that he had a little bit of expertise. That there's a good chance he could have survived.
No, there's a plethora of different details, and I'm sure Cody's gonna kind of elaborate a little bit more. But we'll get into these details here in a second, but the fact that this guy, he knew so much intricate details of how to jump, when to jump, speeds to jump, heights to jump. Like he knew to be on the specific type of plane. I mean, that was crazy. Like I read the FBI report that said, had he been on a bigger airliner, it wouldn't have been able to descend to 10,000 feet at the knots that it was at. It had to have been a 727. Like he knew that. Yeah. He knew what plane to jump out of, right? Because when you jump out of planes, you generally jump out of, smaller little manned aircrafts, things like that. You don't see these large planes. The military does it, right? But they practice this over and over and over again. airliners don't practice this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have their own things, but
they don't jump out of 727s.
Yeah, a 727 commercial passenger airliner,
Yeah.
right? This is something that's not common.
Which is interesting. This specific airliner is the only one with an aft stairway like this. You know what I mean? A lot of other airliners, like, other models of airliners
Right.
don't have this aft stairway.
He knew.
He knew this one was going to have
We're
an
going
aft
to continue
stairway.
to say this because as you go through the story, there's so many facts to like he recognizing land from the sky
Right.
when he's about to jump. Like he recognizes where he's about to jump. That's someone that had planned this out to a T and knew the areas and everything he was going to be
Well,
jumping.
this guy was a pro.
That's a pro.
Let's just throw it out there. He's a pro.
Well, there's some contradicting evidence we'll get into in a moment, but so I'm gonna
contradict.
continue on with the actual
Go
note.
for it.
So
Yes.
the other demand after the parachutes was a fuel truck when he lands to refuel the plane and to get all the passengers off, with the exception of some crew members to obviously man the plane. And then he wanted the flight path.
And I want to talk about that. Wait, he kept Tina instead of Florence. But
He rejected him. He put the note away.
Florence rejected him. I'm thinking that. I'm thinking he's like, you know what? I like Tina now. I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, he went for Tina instead of Florence. Maybe is Florence like an old lady name? He's like,
Maybe he felt bad. Maybe he really liked Florence. And he was like, you know what?
She's
You
had
need
enough.
to go. She's had enough.
yeah, it's possible.
Tina, well,
you I haven't put you through the ringer yet.
Well, the thing is, maybe like he knew that flight attendants maybe would get comfortable with, having someone with a bomb on board. So they may be more prone to do more heroic things.
or maybe Florence is in on it.
I mean, this is 1971. I'm sure that she's walking around in heels, looking cute, that her hair's done. But I don't know. I just find it funny that Florence is the one he interacted with until they
beginning.
landed, and then he's like, Florence, you got to go. Now,
Yeah.
hey, Tina.
Hey, Tina, come over and sit next to me.
So the fuel truck's there. He kicked off all the passengers, kept the flight crew, and got rid of one of the flight attendants.
Yes, correct. And so they are refueling in Seattle, Washington right now. And then he said after we refuel, he would like to go towards Mexico City, right?
Right.
And then at the end of the note, he said, "No funny stuff, or I'll do the job." Right. That's a line in there that's been recalled numerous times. So we can say with certainty that the "no funny stuff,"
Yeah.
or "I'll do the job" is a line in the note, right? That's been like said a million times. So
Hey, he's a wise guy.
right. It's a wise guy. Hey, listen, no funny
Hey,
stuff, or I'll do the job.
Hey.
So anyway, they refuel and they give him the money and they give him the parachutes, and the money's in like a money bag, briefcase kind of thing, and the parachutes are given to him. And then the flight crew, like, they start taking off, right? And then he says, he's like, okay, now I need to be left alone. I need the cabin to be empty. I need need Tina to go back with the pilots in the cockpit. And I need you to show me how to operate the stairway.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, oh yeah, when we get to this this level, this altitude and this, speed, then you can open up the aft stairway, because we can't take off with it open, and we can't, start the takeoff, the ascent like that. So they had to do it mid.
But it's very important too, I think, that he had discussed with the pilot that they were gonna land in Reno.
Yeah, because he
to
actually
refuel more.
Yes, because when he said Mexico City, they were like, well, we can't do that.
We can't make it, right.
We don't have enough fuel for that, even if we refueled.
So their mentality is, we're gonna fly to Reno, we're gonna refuel, we're gonna take off again, and somewhere in Mexico he's gonna jump. Like, that's very important. Like, he laid this out with the pilot. We're gonna take off, we're gonna land in Reno. Cool. They set up the flight path because of the altitude. We're going to fly around these mountains, all in Washington. But again, everybody was under the impression that they were going to land in Reno. He was going to land too, and that they were going to refuel. Very important that I think everybody understands that, because that's not what happened at all, right? I mean,
really, I think maybe that was to throw off, the FBI during the time.
Oh, everybody.
Literally threw a wrench in everybody's plans. Like, oh yeah, psych, I'm going to jump, in the middle of wherever they jumped, Oregon or something like that.
Right. Well, I think they said 15 minutes after takeoff, he was gone.
Yeah, like,
because they saw the red light. He dropped the
opened the
hatch.
Yeah,
15 minutes after takeoff,
and actually
nowhere near Reno, right?
Yeah, so they're on their way from Seattle to Reno, but then exactly 15 minutes after they're finally in the air and they're going, they're there. They jump off, and what actually was noticeable to the cabin members is when he actually jumped off, they kind of felt this small amount of like turbulence almost as he was jumping off. So they thought that might have been him actually jumping off. They felt the plane shake a little bit, when you push off the aft stairway. And when they recreated it, they had the same feeling happen when like they had somebody reenact it. So that was probably around that time. But they were instructed not to go in the cockpit or in the cabin during any point in the flight. So they had to wait until they landed to go in there and check for everything. So, but I think that's it. He just jumped out and then they landed. The FBI swarmed it, tried to get everything in there, get a hold of everything. The only thing that they actually found inside of the cabin was a tie with a tie clip on it.
Right, I saw the picture of that. It has a little tie clip on it.
Correct. The tie clip on there. Then they found.
So he didn't like his tie, huh?
No, skydiving, it would have smacked him in the face. He took it off intentionally.
Oh.
Or he was getting nervous or anxious and, you feeling like you're choked. Was it a full tie or a clip on? It looked like it was a clip on in the picture, but maybe it wasn't.
It did look like a clip on. I mean, I doubt it though. 71, but I don't know. But the other thing that he left behind was one set of parachute, right? He left one set of parachute behind. What's interesting about the set that he left behind is he left behind a civilian luxury parachute, right? They gave him two sets. They gave him a civilian luxury parachute set with, a primary and a secondary. And then they gave him a military grade parachute, primary and secondary. And now, but if you look at the military one that they gave him, the reserve chute was actually sewn shut. So he didn't actually have a reserve chute when he jumped. He had one primary parachute that was military grade for the time, and it wasn't even steerable either. It's just one of those parachutes that you pull and you just land where you land, and you can't steer it at all. You have no influence over where it goes.
Keeping in mind, this is the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
It's around 8 p.m. at night, and now he has one parachute to try to steer in the dark because he jumps during a storm at 8 p.m. at night.
So, and that was another
in the
thing.
middle of winter.
In the middle of winter.
No,
this
I know.
November.
They said that the storm was so bad that they couldn't even search the grounds where they think he jumped until the next day.
Right.
That's how bad the storm was. Like you're not even. This guy just hijacked a multi-million-dollar plane, got away with $200,000 in 20s, and it's in the midst of this storm so great that the FBI was like, "We got to wait till tomorrow." That storm must have been bad.
And they're like, "And my turkey's getting cold."
I did see that he he demanded civilian parachute, and that they had to get to a skydiving school that was closed, and that the FBI had to talk this guy into selling him parachute.
One of the things I saw in here was the reason was he was prepared to jump with people if he had to.
Well, and here's the thing. I want to touch on that real quick. Okay. This guy's highly intelligent, right? The FBI literally writes in their thing that they had contemplated giving him bogus shoot. But their mentality is he's specifically asking for 2, which means he's going to jump with somebody. He planned that. He's like, I know to prevent them from giving me a bogus shoot, I know they won't if they think I'm jumping. The guy thought this out very detailed. This wasn't just some, can I get a bourbon? By the way, I got cans of hairspray in here that may blow up. The guy just, it's not like he was off his rocker, right? This guy was very...
he might have been a little bit off his rocker, but...
I don't know. The amount of detail...
You have to be off your rocker to jump off of a plane in the middle of November in a storm at night.
Pitch black.
With no reserve chute.
But that's just
no
it. Two agents wrote.
But did he know that he had no reserve chute? Was that intentionally stitched closed?
Okay, it was intentionally stitched closed.
And they did it to the military one because they figured that's the one he was going to use.
Yeah, well, it was already like that. The FBI didn't do that. It was already like that for training purposes. That's just what they had.
Got it.
So, but the thing was, I think he knew that it was stitched shut because, and I think he undid it. But here's the thing: when they found the what's it called, the high quality civilian one, the reserve chute in it had been pulled out and cut. Everything was cut out of it, almost as if he was trying to stuff the money in the reserve area for that one. Found out that wasn't going to work, and then put it to the side, and then that's what he left there. He just left. It was torn out, the reserve chute was torn out and then placed back on the floor when they found it. So, but then he took the military one. So maybe
there were 4 shoots, correct?
Well,
so essentially he left one, but the idea is maybe that he
left one set. He left a primary and reserve. He left the civilian.
Got it.
The civilian set. He took the military one. We don't know for sure if he actually found out that the reserve in the military one was stitched, but I think he did because he had to put the money somewhere. And I'm thinking that's where he stuffed it because I don't know if he could carry it all. I mean, maybe he did. Who's to say? But
and so again, there's contrasting, excuse me, written write-ups about two different agents, and one agent did write that yes, though it would seem 100% idiotic the way he was dressed and everything like that, they had to take into effect that he knew so much intricate detail, even down to the fact that some kind of standard protocol in the day was to because I guess during this time there was a lot of airlines being hijacked, which is why there were so many movies in like the 80s about airlines being hijacked left and right, which I always wondered that. I think like 20 million movies about airliners being jacked. Well, find out because they were getting hijacked left and right. Well, standard protocol was anytime an airliner was hijacked, they would send out fighter planes. Well, not even the FBI realized that because of the altitude that they were flying at and the slower knots they were flying at, the fighter jets that they would normally send out cannot maintain at that speed. So they ended up having to send out T-33 Lockheeds, which are like their training planes. They have longer wings, so they have the ability to slow down and glide and things like that. But by the time the T-33s got there, he was already gone. I mean, that's like yet another detail that even the government didn't stop to think about. This guy knew, he knew there, because again, planes have been hijacked. They send fighter planes to escort them, to watch them, and it's like he knew that they would have to pull off because they can't fly 10,000 feet at only 150 knots. We're talking about fighter planes. These are jet engines, right? You cannot slow them down that way. So the T-33 could, but it did not have the capability to get there fast enough. He was gone.
Yep.
Crazy. Like this guy.
Coincidence or detail?
Detail.
Who knows?
Right?
Who
Yeah.
knows?
You're right. I mean, who knows? He could have just.
Is that luck? Is that chance?
And here's the thing. This is where it gets crazy because there's other things that transpire that, like, okay, I just want to throw this one out because it was like, really? So the guy jumps and they figure he's dead, right? A boy had found
$5,800
in 20s, right? And so they're like, all right, well, let's go search that area. So they start to search that area, and Mount St. Helens erupts, right? And washes away any potential ability for finding any tracks of this guy. Like, what is the coincidence in that? Like, you're like, hey, we found these 20s. Let's go search the area. Let's open the search back up in this area to go find Mr. D.B. Cooper and make sure he's dead, or maybe trails to wherever he is. And then Mount St. Helens erupts and wipes away any potential to find any fact. Again, perfect coincidence, right?
Are you talking about this $5,800 you found? Is this the Tina Bar stuff?
Yes. Yes, it is.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, top of the Columbian River in Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little boy that found it in February of 1980.
On a small little beach next to like a little river, right?
It was on the bank of the Columbian River, which is a big river that goes all the way through Washington and Oregon.
Right.
He was digging a fire pit.
Oh, okay.
And in the process of digging a fire pit, found $5,800.
Okay.
And the sequence matches the money.
With the L.
There's more to this, but I'll let you go.
So tell me more about this Mount St. Helena blowing up. So when the mountain erupted,
it was a volcano.
It's a volcano.
Yeah.
It erupted.
Active volcano.
My dad was young and lived
yeah.
up there, and when it happened,
No,
it was ash everywhere.
So what happened with the river and the volcano?
So the volcano erupted, of course, and
Right.
then it comes down. The lava comes down, and it hits water, and it hardens, and it basically creates new land, right?
Mhm.
It's just how forming has happened. Well, when that happened, they had just reopened the search because they found this little boy found this 20s. They're like, yes, perfect. We finally got something. So this is from 1971 to 1980. They had nothing, right? 9 years. They find something, excited, open the search back up. Boom, Mount St. Helens erupts and wipes away any potential. Like the whole area has now been covered in hardened lava.
So not the bank is covered. It's just that area where he might have landed is covered with new land.
Well, keep in mind where they assumed him landing was nowhere near this.
Yeah.
So this is an area where money's been found, proof that technically either he or the money was there, but this is not where he jumped.
But again, no evidence at this point. This is the first.
Where he assumed to have jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
Based on the time,
timing.
technology. They're just estimating based on the time of flight where he might have jumped from. But yeah, so I'll let you continue.
9 years boggled. They don't find anything. They find this. Super excited. Let's get to rocking. Open up the search in that area. Let's get some clues.
So
now clues potentially gone.
Right.
Coincidence? Yeah.
The lava covered the
perfectly
jump
for this
drop zone.
No, so that's the other
we don't know.
Point of contention is you can actually look it up. So I was just looking at this just now. You're talking like 100 miles.
Yeah.
Between where the volcano is and where that bank is. So I don't know what my dad was up there during that time. I remember him talking about like the ash falling and stuff like that. I don't know what it did to the river because the river doesn't really go up towards the volcano. There's a split off where another.
I just know in the FBI report I read, it said like they typed this whole thing up and it said that the searches were opened and not too long after they were spreading out all over the area. The area was basically covered from the eruption of Mount St. Helens, everything from ash to lava, things
volcanic
of that
rock.
nature, volcanic rock. So this basically, it hurt their search. It damaged any potential of any clues of him going into the forest or wherever the case may be.
Gotcha. So it really does not help their investigation
whatsoever. It did not.
The
only evidence that they have found at this point
is the 20s.
Yeah.
All it does is it gives them evidence that either he or the money was there. It is the money. It is the actual money that was in it.
The serial numbers.
Only $5,800 were found.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume the boy that found the money looked for more, right? And nothing more was found than $5,800.
He went and bought a Nintendo too.
Legend.
No, I'm kidding. But that's what I would have done. I'm just saying.
It was 80, so there was no Nintendo. 1980 is when he found it.
Oh, he could have pocketed it for
so it's only been
5 more years?
It's only been... Actually, it's been less than 9 years since the incident.
Oh, it was 1980. So he bought an Atari.
I don't know if we want to get ahead of it, but in August of 2020, there was information on that money.
Since we're talking about the money, let's hear it.
Yeah. So the scientists that researched it and looked at everything, there's this thing called diatoms, which I'm not a scientist. I couldn't. But basically, it's a type of algae that grows in the water during certain seasons, and they can tell based on when it grows what type of diatoms grow to tell you when something was in the water or not in the water. So it was discovered that the money was in the water. The reason it wasn't something that was buried, but essentially something that was in the water, went into the bank. Over time, sand and mud and stuff like that got piled on top of it. So we're talking about probably an 8 year swing.
Yeah.
The diatoms that were on the water were from the spring, not from the fall. So the thought process there as of August 2020 is it didn't fall into the water, that it was put there later on. And it would have to have been months later because the diatoms that grew on it are essentially something that grows. It's algae that grows shortly after being in the water.
Like he was trying to stash it? I mean, is that...
It's only $5,800, right? So it's not much. Yeah. In my mind, I would think maybe in the midst of jumping, something happened and the money went somewhere, but it was found in bulk, right? So when it was given, it was all bundled. They were bundled in stacks of $100 $20 bills. So it's possible that some stacks got loose and they were in a position where over time, deterioration, it fell in the water. No one knows. But the idea is that just kind of ruled out that money hit the water. Because one of the thoughts is if he didn't die from the jump during the storm and all this, is that he hit the water. And jumping from 10,000 feet with the parachute that he did, if he hit the water, there's a good chance that he didn't survive, right? This money didn't hit the water, not when he jumped. Because if he had jumped in November, it's a different diatom than what would have happened. They were seeing spring. So we're talking within a 6-month swing there. And this is something that they said they didn't look back in the 80s when they were researching this. That came like a light bulb, said, oh, hey, we can try to determine timeline. And so that was August of this last year or 2 years ago. So it's kind of crazy that it just again, if they had them an opportunity to search that area, they may have been able to find more money. They may have been able to find something.
Anything. Yeah. Any signs of this guy.
Yeah.
No.
That's a good point, and that's a really good piece of evidence there. I know there's a separate theory, and I know that is it kind of what's it called? Doesn't really mesh well with that theory. But the other theory is that there is actually the river upstream where the drop zone was from that same riverbank is where the drop zone was. So the theory is that the water could have carried the money all the way to this bank, but with that piece of evidence, we know that water hasn't touched the money during that time period. At least
it wasn't in the water, so
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it wasn't in something that was somehow able to keep it.
Yeah, maybe in a bag.
Once algae grows really fast once the sun hits the water. I mean, as an aquarium owner, I see algae grow really fast, but it doesn't take long, 2 to 3 days for algae to start developing on something. So as long as it was kind of protected from being exposed to sunlight and water, it's possible that it was in something, but it didn't sound like he had anything to jump out with other than like a suitcase.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't even know if he jumped with a suitcase.
He jumped with like some sort of bank bag.
Right.
type
So
thing.
the idea would be
that's another thing. They never say he must have taken the suitcase with the potential bomb in it because nothing was left.
Correct. He took the suitcase.
None
and
of
he
it.
has the money bag. Too.
Yeah. He left no traces of himself.
Except the tie.
The tie.
Well, he'd have to have something to carry $200,000 around it. I mean, and it was all in 20s, mind you. So it's a lot of money.
Hey, as a bank manager, that's large. I just want you guys to know that.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
But as $20
something
bills,
small.
it's large. Yes.
Yeah.
Another-
No,
ano-
for sure.
Another point of interest is the rubber bands on the money that was wrapped. So because of the type of rubber bands that were used to wrap this money, the rubber bands would not last more than a year being exposed to oxygen and water.
Water,
during
weather, sun.
any sort of wilderness. The rubber bands would evaporate. They wouldn't last very long.
And again, this must have been before. Being having working for a bank and all that. And in my past, they have special bills that they put in that have explosive abilities to burst paint. Right. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of that. Banks have been able to do that for long. I tried to look it up. I guess they must have not had that back in 71 because that didn't take place, or he knew. I mean, the guy, again, back to the whole knowing of details. I saw something that the FBI wrote that the guy knew so much about the 727. Like he knew, like he specifically told them how he wanted like the depressurization of the plane, when to depressurize. Like he knew all that. Again, yes, an experienced skydiver would know certain things, but this guy knew things about 727 specifically. Like that's what the pilot said to the FBI. Like they said he said things as if he knew the ins and outs of this, commercial airliner, right? Which again, you'd have to do a ton of studying to understand this particular plane. I mean, we're not talking about a small passenger plane. We're talking about a very large plane that normally travels, by the way, at 30 to 40,000 feet in the air, right? It's not typical to fly at 10,000 feet in the air, especially with mountains and everything else, right? And the guy knew everything. The pilot said he had suggested a course that would keep them right around the mountain. I mean, that was another thing. Like the guy mapped out his terrain. He knew the plane, the parachute thing. I mean, you can't sit here and say that this guy was not prepared. 100% prepared across the board. So definitely a level of intelligence there for sure.
Absolutely. What I was saying is that the rubber bands were actually still intact with the money that was found. So it wasn't exposed to anything. So either it was buried on purpose or it was in a bag for a long period of time and not exposed to water.
The money that was found was seriously heavily exposed.
Yeah.
Like you can see there's an image of it.
Yeah,
you can see
exposed.
the edges of the money are all destroyed, but you're talking about like when it was stashed or whatever, the original intent.
It looks like it may have been buried, essentially.
I did a map. So they basically believed he jumped around Ariel, Washington, which is up near Lake Merritt, just below the mountain, actually closer to St. Helena, right?
Yeah.
That's where it's believed to have jumped. It's only about a 50-minute drive to where the money was found, right? So it's not too far off the jump pad. Now, when you're jumping, that's a long ways.
So they believe he jumped near Mount St. Helena?
He jumped, they believe.
An active volcano?
Close by. Mm-hmm.
Where... Yeah, they believe he jumped in near Ariel County, Washington, right? Which is just south of, barely just south of St. Helena.
Right.
So closer to St. Helena than where the Tennebar was, right? Tennebar is where it was found. Like I said, it's on the Columbia River. So Ariel kind of goes up through the Lewis River, which is up near Lake Merritt. This is just a different area. So again, jumping from 10,000 feet of the parachute, he's not traveling that far by parachute. So there is a possibility of it hitting the river and traveling down to the Columbia River. The problem is, and this is where it kind of gets tricky, is what was found on the money as far as the diatoms, the degradation, the rubber bands, all disprove that theory of it hitting the water and floating down and being found 8 years later.
It would have had to have floated down in the bag and then somehow gotten out of the bag.
Or something. I mean, this would have to be...
And then the bag taken somewhere else with the rest of the
It
money.
would have to be waterproof, something that doesn't break down. Even a bag sitting on top of land in the sun would take on some form of like oxygen, heating, everything. It would damage the money. So this would have to have been something that was unexposed. It goes more along the lines that, like, and it's only $5,800, and it wasn't found in a bag.
Yeah, it was just laid out.
It was just laid out,
So what
buried.
you're saying is it's what it sounds like, that the evidence would suggest that it was planted of some sort, like purposely put wherever it was found.
More than likely. Yeah.
And maybe not at the time of the jump, because we're talking 9 years. Maybe he came back and did it.
Yeah.
Maybe,
according to the diatone.
I mean, maybe he never left the Washington, Oregon area. Maybe he's still there today. I don't know. We're going to get into that little...
Right. And then
near
there's
the
also
end
the
here,
theory
but-
that maybe when he jumped, money got loose. It is possible for paper money. I mean, it was a rainstorm, but for paper money to have floated off, whatever. The reality is $5,800 were found together and they were not wrapped. So...
Interesting.
Right. So you're thinking...
Well, they were wrapped in rubber band.
Not when they were found.
That's... Yeah, no, this...
Okay.
The rubber bands were found
find the bundle.
Yeah, they were found in their original stacks. That's the whole thing. It's why the rubber bands like weren't evaporated. They weren't gone.
Okay, so that disproves my theory of the idea that if he's jumping and something gets loose, a bundle of 100, or so it's 100 bills, $20. So you're talking about $2,000 bundles.
So that doesn't
do
even...
not float.
And that does not add up, by the way. $5,800. I mean, unless the kid jacked his...
No. Well, it doesn't.
Kid jacked his $200. He's like,
well,
listen,
no.
I'm going to give me an Atari
If you look at this...
and a 25-inch tube TV.
If you look at this, there's a lot of bills that were destroyed. So not every bundle had rubber bands. Like you'll see that there's a lot that were actually completely destroyed. So it's possible that it was $6,000 and then over time, they lost a little bit of money. The problem is, though, that's all that was found.
I just think the kid he's like, I'm going to take my share.
The money is like unusable. You see it?
Oh,
it looks like it put it through a washing machine.
And then set on fire.
I'll still spend some washing machine money. I'm just saying. But I meant to throw this little fun fact in there. So DB Cooper and poor person that this little piece is based on. So the guy comes in, when he buys his ticket, he says, my name is Dan Cooper. Okay. DB did not come till later when they found an individual in the Oregon area named DB Cooper. So the FBI investigate this individual. They clear this individual, but unfortunately, the press, the media had caught this and accidentally, air quote, accidentally leaked it, and it became this moniker. Like they're like, it hung, right? So he never actually said, my name is DB Cooper, by the way. So, but this is what has hung to this individual. He said, my name is Dan Cooper. But so this poor individual in Oregon, the moniker that they run with since 1971 is because they're, some wrongly accused individual that ended up, that individual's name ended up being the tagline for this mystery. Like, we're just going to run with it. The FBI's like, well, the media's already blown it out there. Let's just put DB Cooper, on the block. The other funny thing I found is that, do you know that thousands of people have come out to say, I'm DB Cooper? Like, first and foremost, you got to stop and think about this. Okay, you are an FBI most wanted. Like, why would you want to go to the FBI and allow them to believe that you are the one? For the fame?
A lot of people
But you going to prison.
A lot of people
that
want
if
legacy,
that's you, right?
They want legacy. They want that type of story. So you're right.
They clearly
Zodiac,
don't. They clearly don't know about Bubba in prison though. Like fame versus dropping the soap. I'm just saying. Like, cool. Like, you want to exchange that?
I think wasn't there a number of people that took credit for the Zodiac killings?
Yeah, that people
right.
Are nuts.
So it's insane.
So there was one lady in 2011, and the FBI said that this was the closest potential, and the only reason is because she claims her uncle, whose name is L.D. Cooper, right, that he went around saying our money problems are solved right before this happened. They showed pictures of Mr. L.D. Cooper to the flight attendants, and they said similarity, but they said there was not enough to hang this on this guy, and they went about their business. So I guess L.D. Cooper is not the man, right? And then some of the other cool stuff that, in the case, they actually closed the case in 2016.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they said they assumed him to be dead.
Right.
That he died on the night that he jumped.
Right. But there is, again, that other agent. There's this other agent that interjects going, I see what you're saying in a sense, right? I'm going to paraphrase here. I see what you're saying. But the guy having all this knowledge, if he's this smart in this area, he would have been smart enough to understand the weather that was happening and everything else. Like, why would you discredit him over here? Because the reason they say he's dead is he jumped in the clothes he jumped in. They said the weather he jumped in, the time of year. Like, why would you plan all this other intricate detail and not take any of that into effect? That's this other FBI analyst is saying you're discrediting him too much. You're making him seem like he's smart over here, but ignorant over here, right? Like, it doesn't add up. Like, the guy would have taken, you don't take tons of fact on one side and not the stuff on the other side. This one's saying, so there's, again, they're contrasting. I think they're like, we don't want to look like fools anymore, so we're just going to close this, say he's dead, and walk away, right? Before we close, we're all going to throw our ideas of what Mr. D.B. Cooper is probably doing or whatnot. We'll have some fun with it here in a minute. The Hollywood plugs. You guys look these up?
Well, that's where this all started. We started
talking
about the initial one.
But I want to talk about the other ones before we get to the last big one, the most latest Hollywood plug. Prison Break. You guys ever watch the show?
Yep.
So he was in Prison Break, or there was an actor that portrayed him. He had this cat, right? But he was in the prison, like they had supposedly caught D.B. Cooper, and he claims,
to be D.B. Cooper.
I'm like D.B. Cooper, right? The show News Radio. Like, they played on it that this one character was going to come out as D.B. Cooper, and then Adam West apparently comes out as D.B. Cooper in show News Radio. A show named Journeyman.
The Journeyman came out when there was a writer's strike. It was actually a pretty cool movie where he could travel back in time. I want to say it was Anthony Michael Hall.
Really?
I believe I could be completely off, but it was kind of like Quantum.
Who?
It was kind of like Quantum Leap, but he had the ability to travel back in time. And this was like 2011.
He's friends with John Cusack.
But yes,
all the no-name people just know each other. They gotta stick together, dude.
No.
Oh my gosh,
Anthony Michael Hall, bro. Come on. Really?
No, I wouldn't expect him to know who that is. I wouldn't expect him to know who that is.
Cody's tagline. Ooh. Who? So yeah, Journeyman. I guess in episode 5, they changed the name though. I read that like they changed the character's name, but it is 100% it portrays exactly D.B. Cooper. You ready for this one? I think Cody's seen this movie. Bigfoot versus D.B. Cooper. Bro. Bigfoot versus D.B. Cooper.
Well, does it have John Cusack in it?
No.
No, it's Kevin Costner.
Oh, see? That's why I've never seen it.
It was up for awards. I mean, seriously, like, what are these people doing? Bigfoot versus D.B. Cooper? So, like, he jumps out of a plane in Washington and
he just grows his facial hair out and becomes Bigfoot. It's the perfect cover. Nobody would believe that you've seen him.
They just went deep.
That's like the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer movie.
Right.
Whoa.
Have you seen that?
Whoa. Are you trying to diss Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
No. Dude,
like, they took historical Abraham.
I love that movie.
And I was like, they added in vampires?
Yeah.
Like, they took the historical fact of Abraham and everything that happened during the Civil War, and they threw in vampire. I was like, that's legit. I believe it happened. I believe it was real. I think Abraham Lincoln was cutting off vampire heads.
Another episode for another time.
Yeah, well, we'll do that. Great movie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
We did.
And no, not yet. So there is also this is just speculation, but there was a French comic book strip through the 50s and 60s that had a pilot who did a lot of skydiving and stuff like that named Dan Cooper. So they believe that this guy, being a skydiving pro, that's where he took the name. I don't know.
Which is the same name found on the ticket that was purchased.
Right. Oh no, we know he used Dan Cooper.
Yeah,
that
Dan
much.
Cooper.
We don't know what his real name is.
It's a French comic, but it's The Far Side. Anybody that has read newspapers.
Well, no, there was a Far Side also.
Oh, okay. You're talking about a different.
Oh no, yeah, there was a French comic book
Oh, cool.
about this pilot. Like, you know, just like if you were to read Marvel or whatever. This is in France. They had this comic book. It was fairly popular, but it was specifically about this like their Air Force pilot who did like skydiving and stunts and tricks and things like that. But it was known. It was a well-known comic in Europe, and so they believe that that's where he ripped it from. Now, being a skydiving enthusiast / pro, you know, he possibly would have known about this comic book because that was what the character did.
Right, and something. That's a good point that you bring up the skydiving comic, right, from Dan Cooper. So it wasn't available in America, right? It was a European one, right?
Right.
But do you know where it was available? Canada.
Right.
And so what's interesting about this, in 1971 it wasn't available in the US yet, but it was available in Canada for a few years before that, right before the hijacking took place. And it would make sense that our suspect is not American or Canadian or French, something like that, because of how he asks for the money. He says circulated American currency.
Yeah.
Now, if you're American, you probably don't have to specify
You don't specify
American currency.
Oh.
But if you are foreign, you probably do need to specify that.
Oh.
So,
All right.
yeah, probably likely that our suspect may not be from the state.
And French Canada. So
Really close.
Yeah.
Really close to the Washington,
It's
Seattle
also
area.
why you would jump
Really
in
close.
Washington.
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
All right.
Mm.
Okay.
I like
All right,
that.
We connected it. And then of course we have the most latest DB plug. You know, I'm sure there's quite a few out there that have watched it but may not have caught. I'm gonna let Andy take this one. It is fun. It's cool.
Well, I don't want to go too deep into it because it is a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but the show's been out for a while
Yeah.
now.
So do a spoiler alert before you do it, just in
Yeah.
case people haven't seen it.
it's
so
like
they
on the
can
first
turn it
episode,
off.
though. It's not like a.
It is the first
It
episode.
is the first
And
episode.
it's
It's
kind
not-
of
it's
it's
not
a very
spoiler.
small, like candid.
Yeah.
And if you
moment.
don't know what it is, if you don't like,
Correct.
I had to go back and watch it after you guys
They
mentioned
do
it.
say
'cause-
what it is.
do they?
I believe they reference who he is.
I still didn't catch that part, but I did.
They say
It
Mr.
did make
they-
100% sense
They call
after
him
watching.
Mr. Cooper.
They said, Mr. Cooper.
Oh,
Yeah.
they
Here's
do.
your drink. And he's like, oh, thank you. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
So go ahead. Wait,
So
so
it-
spoiler alert before you do
The Loki TV show.
Loki TV show on Disney Plus.
Right. There's this moment where they realized that Loki had been coming back to Earth like
Yeah.
over generations.
Right.
And one of the moments where he comes back to Earth is a very small moment. It shows him on a plane sitting there in a suit and tie,
Yes.
and the
Orders a drink.
orders a drink. She brings him the drink, and then it shows him smiling with the parachute on, jumping out the window or jumping out the plane.
Yes.
Now, in the video, they show him jumping out the side of the plane, not the back of the plane, I don't believe. But anyways, it's just a quick tie to say that Loki, you know, as a god, as an Asgardian,
Yeah.
travel back to Earth,
Jumping in and out of time and
to have fun.
Yeah.
As just a whatever moment thing.
which is why there's no trace of him anymore.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Which
Because
is, I thought it was a fantastic tie.
That was a great tie. I loved it.
Fantastic tie.
So, as we wrap this up,
I have a list of suspects to go through before we.
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
Yeah, do it. We're
go
good.
ahead. Yeah.
And it's okay if we have a longer episode. I think our fans will really enjoy a
Yeah.
longer episode. So,
We love you guys.
so I have a list of potential suspects to go through really quick, and you guys
Oh.
can tell me what you guys think. Which
Yeah.
and I'll give you the pros and cons of some of them. Some of them don't have cons, so some of them just have stuff against them. It's like, oh well, that's a lot of information. Anyway, so suspect numero uno, Robert Rackstraw. Yeah, Rackstraw.
Okay.
Robert Rackstraw. He was a paratrooper and helicopter pilot in the military.
Oh.
Okay. He had knowledge of bombs and a criminal record. And his uncle's name is John Cooper. Okay. He was discharged from the army 5 months before the hijacking. So that could have given some motive to
Yeah.
why he, wanted to
He also
do this
looks
hijacking.
dead on the photo.
Yeah.
Like
no, he looked
dead on the
a lot of
sketch.
these people do look, they match the description. A lot of these people do.
Right.
So, that's one suspect, right? And he in one of the notes that the DB Cooper actually writes to one of the flight attendants, like you want to say waitress,
Flight strippers.
flight mistress.
Whatever. Yeah.
So one of the notes he says, "I don't have a grudge against your airline," right? So we know it's not like the airline.
This
he's
isn't
not,
a personal
Yeah,
vendetta.
it's not a personal vendetta against Northwest Airlines,
Yeah.
right? It just happened to be the flight right place, right time is what Cooper said. So he's like, it's not about your airline. I just have a grudge. I don't have a grudge against your airline. I just have a grudge is the line he said. So that's recalled at least. So that could give some motive there. Anyway, Robert Rackshaw doesn't have any like defensive arguments there. That's just all of his stuff. He's just matches the description, has a lot of expertise that would point to that kind of thing, and a motive. So, and the next person is Kenneth Christensen. Okay, he was a paratrooper in World War II. Okay, he worked for Northwest Airlines as a mechanic and flight attendant. Okay, same airline. Worked there for a number of years. He was 45 years old at the time of the hijacking. So he matches the age description.
Right.
So, and he's left-handed. And Cooper is thought to be left-handed as well because of the tie clasp he left behind. Because
it slips
in from the left. Correct. Huh. So he puts his tie clasp on from the left. So we know he's left-handed or probably left-handed. So
I don't know. Mr. Cooper's pretty freaking smart.
I don't know, man.
This dude be dropping detail.
So, and on top of being left-handed, he has over $200,000 in the bank.
Wait. They can't see when he deposited this $200,000 in 1971.
However,
today we can for sure.
However, here are the contrasting thing. He doesn't match the description. He had a lot less hair.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the.
He doesn't look like the guy. He has a lot less hair. The money he has in the bank, the $200,000 he has in the bank, he had through selling land that he owned previously.
Oh, so they did trace.
So they have traced the money. So they're like,
and it
was laundered.
Money's been traced for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot better job today than we ever did. But yeah.
So I mean, but this is the 70s we're talking about. So
yeah, I get it.
But so there's that. He doesn't match the description. He just matches the age, and he has the money. Not sure about the motive though. There's not a lot of motive there. Just the expertise.
Right.
Our next guy, Richard Mccoy. Okay, this guy has a lot of stuff. He hijacked and parachuted from a 727. He did this. He did exactly the same thing that DB Cooper did. A year later
in like Utah. I saw this.
Yeah.
Yes. He ends up getting caught for it.
So they think he's like a repeat offender.
They think this is just another one of his things because he did a similar thing.
Right.
Okay. So he did this in the following year in 1972. And then he used a fake name, right? He used a hand grenade instead of a briefcase bomb. He used handwritten notes.
Because it was tough to jump while holding a briefcase.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Think about how strong security is these days. These two got on a plane with a hand grenade.
well, mind you.
And a handgun. He had a handgun too.
Mind you, the first time it's a bomb, a year later, after all this has happened, security has not changed.
Yeah.
He gets on with a grenade and a handgun.
Hey guys, thanks for letting me on. Here's my gun. Here's my hand grenade.
Oh, they're like, yeah, what a wacko. That'll probably never happen again. We don't have to worry about that. Yes. Now that the whole world knows that someone hijacked a plane for $200,000 with a bomb, no one will ever try that again. Anyways, he used handwritten notes just like DB Cooper did, right? And in the notes, he used the line "no funny stuff." Same line that DB Cooper used.
But this stuff's already been out in the press at this point.
It's been a year, so it's possible he was trying to see if he could do it.
Well, I don't even know if that line was in the news, or I haven't seen them.
But the feds clearly clear this guy.
Anyway, he also asked for 4 parachutes, the same number of parachutes.
But again, this was a year later.
This is a year later.
By this point, it was
could
already
be a copycat.
It was all blown through the media.
Totally could have been.
And here's the thing: the feds wouldn't have discredited this guy if they felt there was enough evidence, because the feds do not like to be beaten, right? Yeah. So they would have pegged this guy if there was enough evidence.
So he was caught 2 days after this second one that he did.
Yeah,
he managed to evade for about 2 days. Sentenced to 45 years in prison. So he's doing time. He died already though, but he's dead.
He's
on his deathbed. He would not admit to being DB Cooper. He's like, I could have been, maybe, but he's not saying he is or isn't. Anyway, so he was an experienced skydiver as well.
Yeah.
We don't know that Cooper was or wasn't an experienced skydiver, because it's like, sure, you could say a pro could have jumped out of there and lived, but then you could have said, oh, those conditions, a pro wouldn't have done that in those conditions either. So I mean, you can go both ways. So I mean, it was kind of dumb of Cooper to take the non-steerable parachute so you could have said he's not an experienced skydiver. This person was an experienced skydiver, so that kind of goes against him in that way. He failed to retrieve the notes. So the FBI were able to keep his notes on the second plane jacking, or I guess first, because we don't know if he's actually DB Cooper.
Yeah, there's more information on McCoy. Did you dig into McCoy much? So he actually escaped prison.
Oh, he escaped prison?
He escaped prison in 1974 and had a shootout with the FBI and ended up dying in that incident.
Oh, tight, dude.
Yeah. He fashioned a fake handgun out of dental paste, out of toothpaste. So he
Nice.
and was able to escape. Was on the run
Legit.
from August to November when he got pinned in a house and had a shootout where he died. I'm sorry. How legit?
Did he shoot the cops
that's a
with
movie.
the toothpaste gun? Or
Well, I mean, by that point he had been out of prison.
70s
for a couple
toothpaste
months.
is something else, man.
that's crazy. That's some intense stuff.
Yeah,
Brushing your teeth with a gun.
Yeah.
he was not staying in prison, bro.
It was not.
So he was he was only 29 in 71. And that doesn't really match the description. That was
No, I think the description said 40s.
Yeah.
That he
late 30s,
early 40s.
late
Yeah.
30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when shown a picture to the crew, he was not recognized as DB Cooper.
Right.
So that he doesn't have a lot of that stuff going for him. But Dwayne Weber is another one. He claimed he was DB Cooper on his deathbed. Oh, this is the one who claimed he was on his deathbed, right? He said in a confession to his wife as he was dying, he said, "I am DB Cooper. I have to tell you something really important, right? I'm DB Cooper." And he has shown a bank bag that was similar to the one given to Cooper at the scene. Yeah. And he had a knee injury on a previous jump that he said. We don't know where he got it from, but he says his knee was injured on a previous jump. And also, this is really damning if I do say so myself. He visited the Tina bar a year before the money was found. Allegedly visited Tina bar.
And that would time up.
Yeah.
That would.
But
Ooh.
this next one is my favorite. And I think that this one is the most likely candidate. If it's not this person, then it's a dead Canadian. So, or it's a Canadian that fell in the volcano after he jumped. So, but this is my favorite one of the list that I compiled. So this is William Smith. Will Smith, the actor. No, so no. But he had a military background, which to me makes sense because he chose the military grade backpack out of,
which means he'd be more comfortable with it.
Right, exactly. Because he was recognizable and he would be more comfortable with doing something like that. So he had a military background. He was 43 at the time of the jump. He matched the description. He went to school with a Dan Cooper. He worked as a yard master for a railroad company. Okay. This is important because the company faced bankruptcy in 1970, a year before the jump, right? And as a result, he lost his pension, which would give a motive. And because of this bankruptcy, it's because of the new, like all the Airbuses going up and the people were flying instead of railroading, right? So because of this, he lost his pension, which he's been working for a very long time, right? And he could have used his knowledge of railroad network to escape capture after the jump. Okay. He knew where all the railroads were connected and going to, so he knew how to get from A to B, right? What's the most conclusive about this whole thing is that there's the tie that was left, right? It was recently examined using an electron microscope. Okay. An electron microscope scans for tiny metallic particles found on the material, right? And there were traces of titanium, pure titanium, on this tie. Now, you would only get those kind of readings and those kind of materials from someone who works at a chemical factory that deals with heavy metals like that, or someone like a yard master. At railroad tracks, correct. And so that's such a specific type of job that our guy, Will Smith here, worked at for several years, had the motive of losing his pension and having needing, to rob and steal and do all this stuff. And he had a military background, which is knowledge of the parachutes and everything.
But again, they cleared this guy as a suspect.
Yeah, there was over 1,000 suspects.
No,
right?
I know, yeah. And even when they narrowed it down, they still again, I mean,
Well, that
they
was in
closed
this-
this case in 2016.
This
so.
this suspect appeared in 2018.
And he died in 2018. So it wasn't
Yeah.
until then that he became
Correct.
a sleuth suspect.
Right. So this is
He
kind of
looks-
after the fact.
He looks
this is,
a lot like him.
Yeah, no, he matches the
He
description.
looks a lot
dead
like
on.
the description. I mean, he's
So what did he do? Like what was his? They had to dig into his record from 1971 from this event happening to the point he died in 2018. Like, what was he doing? Like, was he still working for the railroad? You got $200,000. Like, what was he doing?
Well, he had gotten let go and lost his pension.
Yeah, the company he
But
was
look,
railroading.
So, but I'm saying, so after that, right?
Right.
So this guy is a potential suspect in 2018. He's now passed away in 2018. They would have dug into his past to see what he did from the time that this event took place.
What was he doing during the
I
time?
could read
What was
through
he doing?
this. There's a
He's
lot
probably
of,
unemployed.
there's a lot of things here.
Chilling on
he had a
$200,000.
sudden need for
Like,
money.
Did he put money in the stock
with
market?
the bankruptcy due to the railroads, and the bankruptcy to railroads was largely a fault of airlines. So we had a grudge against the airlines,
Yep.
right? He was referred to as mild-mannered radical, which is kind of the way that it was described. Okay, I'm like, there's so many things in here. He was put on furlough in 1971 because the railroads were struggling.
Right.
Mhm.
So everything kind of leads to it. He had experience in the sky. We talked about this on the last episode that oftentimes when people are doing things that are ill, right? Like you're going to do something you're not supposed to, you oftentimes will pull ties into things common with, right? Thomas Ling, when I said that on our last episode, I believe that it had to do something with piracy, and that if I was going to do it, I would mask it around something that I was familiar with enough, but wouldn't tie back to me.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty good tie to say, hey, you have an uncle named with John Cooper.
No, that was another guy.
so-
He went to high school with someone named Dan Cooper.
Right. So a close connection to where he was comfortable probably with the masquerade of the Dan Cooper, but nothing that was going to tie it back to him.
So we all think this is the guy, right?
I don't know. This one's the most convincing when
Dang,
I'm
I wish
looking
I'd
through
have
the
known
notes.
this. I would have dug into this guy
If
to
it's-
figure out what he like. There has to have been like some evidence. Like maybe in 1980 he dumped a little bit of money into, maybe in the 80s he was like, hey, what's this Apple company? You know what I mean? Like
The money must have been masterfully laundered, like very well.
yeah.
And that's why we can't track it, any of it, or it's not being used yet.
Well, no, it's possible. But what did he survive on? Like you took $200,000, you jumped out, you survived this crazy event. There's no traces of you. Like that, well planned, the whole thing, and you don't spend any of the money.
What's it for?
Like, yeah, was it just
The grudge?
Was
it just to take down Northwest Airlines?
he filled his bathtub up and swam in it? He did a Scrooge McDuck.
This is a really, 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 really funny
What?
kind of note.
I know you don't know.
I know who Scrooge McDuck is. Why is he filling a bathtub and swimming in it? What's going on?
Oh, Scrooge McDuck has like a vault full of gold
I
coins
know
and money.
that, but what's the bathtub thing?
And just
what he-
because you got
that's what he
$200,000 in
meant.
20s,
It's
like, you know what I mean?
You're
Like
gonna swim in the money because you
Hey.
have it.
3 hours of sleep, bro.
he
3
filled
hours
the
of
bathtub
sleep.
up with money.
This is
This
just
is melatonin talking, okay?
This is just silly. This is silly. I'm looking at it, and this is like a long list of things. So I guess in like 1972, somebody claimed to be DB Cooper to an artist or to an author. They believe that there's ties between him and that author.
Yeah.
To claiming to be DB. But my favorite one on here, which is just absolute coincidence, but it's great, is that the flight attendant that the note was handed to was Florence Schaffner.
Saw that.
Right? Schaffner actually translates into train conductor. Like the last name references the word train conductor.
Whoa.
So I guess that's what it's translated into. I was like, are you kidding me? Like
That's a reach.
that's
They're
a
like,
reach. It's 100% a reach.
They're
But
like, perfect.
why not? Why not? Like,
Yeah, I know.
listen, nobody wants this to just be some rando. They
Right.
want somebody like at this point now, like especially if you live on the West Coast like we do, this is
Yeah.
a big story for us. Like this is something we've all looked at. Same as Zodiac, right? If it ends up coming out to be some scrub that just happened to get away with it, or he died in the middle of the jump, like
Hey, I just
Where's
want
the
to know,
fun
I
in
just
that?
want to know one thing. $200,000 in the 70s, if invested right, could it have started a website that stored terabytes of information? That's all I want to know. I just want to know.
no, it's more likely that it was started as
Is-
Microsoft.
Is DB Cooper really Thomas Ling? Saying we got it,
No, it doesn't match
Now,
the description.
Talk about a reach.
Because I mean, if we're reaching, let's go. Anyway, so let's finish this up. Who knows who DB Cooper is, right? I mean, that last
It's Will Smith.
that sounds
I don't know.
sounds
Going
pretty
into
solid,
this, I
yeah.
had seen nothing on the Will Smith after
Yeah, me
researching it
either.
just now. In the 20
I saw a
minutes
lot of
that we-
suspects. I did not see that one. Like
That one is
I would
pretty
have dug.
convincing. He died in 2018 of a heart attack, I believe, is what they said.
Right, but I would have dug deeper into what happened in the 80s, 90s. Like, they had to have uncovered what this guy was doing. If he sounds, and yeah, you're right. Looking at the picture, yeah. For all you listening, look this guy up because he definitely side by side with the sketch. It's close. So I think
final verdict. We know the guy was highly intelligent.
Highly intelligent. Yep.
The decision to ask for the different types of parachutes or the number of parachutes in general.
Yeah.
Everything he did along the line points to someone that was intelligent that had planned this thing out.
Yep.
Right.
Articulate.
I believe that he made it in the jump. I believe he made it with all the money.
Yeah.
Now,
most of the money.
But no. The tie back to that 60s. To Will Smith going to Tenebar and possibly burying the money is gnarly. Now, what I didn't see in the research is whether or not that money had been there for years, or if it because you said that he had visited the Tenebar like a year or two before it was found.
I think that's a different guy. I think that
no, it was in the notes from the last one. It was from Will Smith. And he said he had visited Tenebar months before. But nonetheless,
that was Dwayne Weber who visited the bar the year before.
Okay, regardless, I still think that there's a lot of information that ties back to, because the other guys, it's all coincidence. Like there's some weird things there. They had some experience, but not others. They claimed he never took any credit for it. Which, if I'm doing this and you're doing it with the intention of recouping what you've lost, right? The idea that he lost his pension, he's trying to get this money back. You do what you need to do, and you never talk about it again.
That's it.
He had a wife and 2 kids, lived a normal life, and that was it. So I don't know. I believe that he survived. I believe that the money, for the most part, got away. He got away with it, with the exception of I guess it would probably be $6,000 if we're assuming it to be correctly. He lost, but that's just my belief. I want to believe that he landed.
So he still has $194,000.
Well,
in 1971,
again, we think about inflation, right? This is before. Yeah. You're talking a few $1 million.
Yeah,
if not invested.
Hey, this guy, he had it together. It was on point.
Oh,
definitely crazy mystery for sure. And he duped the FBI. So
it was the biggest ruse ever. No, but sure. So the $200,000 in 1971 translates to 1.3 million.
Right. Ooh. Right. That's not invested.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. That's just leaving it sitting. No bank account. Yeah. No nothing.
That's just for inflation.
Right.
Inflation calculator.
So if you guys are listening, if you guys stole $1.3 million, that was what he basically did in 1971. So meaning, I mean, and it all relates. I mean, $18 for a plane ticket. Right? Again, that's 3 gallons of gas today. So, anyways, let's wrap this up. DB Cooper, intelligent, mysterious. Who knows? Maybe Will Smith. Could be 1,000 other people. Don't know. Any of you guys want to throw in your thoughts on who it is other than Will Smith? I think he sounds like the guy, probably.
Cody sold me on it.
Yeah.
Either him or a dead Canadian.
Definitely. Yeah. Alien could be, too.
I don't know that we really want to know. I think the mystery of not knowing is what makes things like this. Like, think about it. If we had found his body in 71, we wouldn't be talking about it.
No, yeah, for sure. And again, the FBI wants to know. Again,
well, do they? They closed the case and they assume he died.
They closed the case because they don't like being wrong.
They assume he died.
Federal Bureau of Investigation. Literally, your job is to investigate and find answers, and you can't find the answer. Of course, you're going to close it. So, anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Hey, guys, if you guys hadn't got a chance, follow us, like us. We're on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the podcast sites. We appreciate you guys. We love you. We're out.
Peace out.
See you later.